Good morning. We're good. We're live now. Good. We got that fixed. Good morning. Happy Coffee Talk Tuesday, everybody. Now I'm just going to set up my Instagram. If you guys give me just a second. For some reason, Be Live was not being cooperative today. So we need to set up our Instagram. Talk Media Group is now live. That is correct. Okay, Instagram, why aren't you setting up? Live. There we go. Let's go live on Instagram. So everybody's there. Good morning, everybody. Let's try this again. All right. We're going to try part 2. Good morning. Happy Coffee Talk Tuesday. It's a great subject this morning. I find this very interesting because my first degree was actually in psychology. Hi, Kelly. Thanks for joining in. Had some difficulty this morning, but we're all good now. So my first degree was in psychology, and I find this really interesting. And there's so much information here. I actually may make a part 2 because I did get the book. I am reading it, and I'll talk about this book in a minute for you guys. At the end, I'll tell you the book. And I was listening to a podcast, and this is where I got a lot of this information. That's really, really interesting. So we're going to jump right into it. We're going to talk about today, basically, neuroscience and marketing. Okay, how do we market to people and be consistent in marketing? And there's a lot of neuroscience that goes into marketing, and it's very, very interesting. And so Tracy Trost, who was interviewed by Michael Stelzner on Social Media Examiner, it was a great podcast, and I found it fascinating, and because I love psychology and sociology. So, we all create posts, or we create a marketing campaign. Sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. And when they work, we're all excited, right? And we're like, wow, that's great. We're amazing marketers and this and that. And then we'll create another one and it doesn't work. And like, why? The other one worked, this one doesn't work. One of the things we do with Facebook ad campaigns is A/B testing, because you're never sure, what's going to work with somebody. So we try to throw a few things out there and watch people's behavior and see which one people like. And then we'll pull down an ad and we'll put up a different ad. This kind of gives you an idea of how to market towards people in a biological way. We all have hormones, and we all have hormones that are released in certain situations. Oxytocin's released, and it's like a pleasure cuddling hormone. And we have cortisol, which is like a stress hormone, and we have dopamine. So, different situations cause us to have different hormones released. And these are related to emotions and our behaviors. And what we do know is that most people react to things, they don't respond, right? It's very difficult most of the time for someone to stop, think rationally, and respond to something. Most of the time, we just have a gut visceral reaction, and that's what happens. So today we're going to talk about, why that happens, and then some basic instincts that we know people react to with marketing. So first, like I said before, we all want to keep recreating things that are successful. And we are using money in our marketing, so we want that money to go as far as it can. And like I said, sometimes we create something and it's great, and then the next time we create it, it's not so great. So what causes one person to have a reaction to your campaign or your post versus another person? What's common to all of us, and what makes us react? And if we had that recipe that repeatedly works in marketing, our success rate would increase, right? So these tips are definitely going to help you to market better. Tracy Trost was talking about basically how we've all been conditioned since we were young. So when we're young, like 7 to 8, 10 years old, we have these theta waves. There's alpha, beta, theta, gamma waves. Theta waves are active when we're younger, And these theta waves basically, it's a frequency that absorbs information, and we're creating ideas in our heads of how things should be in these years. And so when we see something when we're older and we have a visceral reaction to this object or experience, this is actually going back to our, primal brains of what we learned when we were younger. And it's kind of like we're reacting with like a 10-year-old brain, which is can be kind of scary, right? But our ideas are formed when we're younger, and then as we grow older, we're referring to our experiences that we had when we were younger. He talks about perfect reaction is, and that's a subconscious level. Our belief system about what we experience now causes a reaction as we're older, and this is all on a subconscious level. And so it's impulsive. It's not even what you really control. You can't control these things, and we can recreate these things or create these things in children. If I'm sure we all have memories of when we were little and our parents did something, and now we find that we're doing that, right? Subconsciously, we don't know, realize it, but we're doing it. For example, when I used to ride in a car back before they made you wear seatbelts, if my parents ever slammed on the brakes, all of a sudden an arm came across my chest, like it was going to save me. It wasn't going to save me, but that was their visceral response to this. If they had to slam on the brakes, an arm came across my chest to help me. I can't tell you how many times I did that when my daughter was younger, until I finally stopped myself saying, she's got a seatbelt on. I don't have to do that. It was just, I was taught that as a kid, and then I did it as I got older. You can also think about a Pavlovian response. And basically, what Pavlov did was he had a dog, and noticed that every time the dog was going to eat, he would open a can, the dog would start to drool. And he thought, can I make this dog drool in another way? So he started ringing a bell right before he would serve the dog food. So the dog associated the bell with the food, and then that would make him drool. Soon enough, he took away the food, and all he did was ring a bell, and the dog would drool. So, people, you can create, I mean, obviously that's an animal, but the same thing can happen in Homo sapiens and in us, that, we can create these reactions, and that's a visceral response. That's a subconscious thing. You're not even thinking about that. And so most of the time when you create an ad, people are reacting to what they see, not necessarily what they're reading. So you want them to have a great reaction, or the reaction, you want to create a reaction. You want them to have the reaction that you want them to have. So if we can understand what triggers people subconsciously, we can market to that mindset. I really think like I have to have a part 2 of this, because there's so much information. It's amazing. So he also refers to, and I did get this book and I am reading it now, and it's very good. Robert Cialdini wrote a book called Influence. And Tracy Trost said actually he first started, reading this book, and it kind of like triggered, because he wanted to know, he works for nonprofits. And so with nonprofits, especially, they really measure ROI, right? Because they have to report it, and every single penny really needs to be spent the correct way. So he read this book called Influence by Robert Cialdini, and he talks about 6 major principles of persuasion that he has not only noticed but researched in people. And I'm going to go through those with you guys. So the first one, and these are the principles that you can use in your marketing. So the first one's called reciprocity. And we've all seen this marketing. We've all been marketed to like this. Reciprocity. That's when people are obliged to give back. So a perfect example is whenever you've gotten any sort of mailing or request to help veterans, right? And they'll say, Look what the veterans have done for you. We are where we are because of these veterans. And it does make you feel like, yeah, they have done a lot and they have sacrificed. And so people will donate to them, or you get that dollar in the mail, or you get that nickel in the mail. And you feel like, yeah, I should give because they just gave to me. That's the example of reciprocity. The second one is called scarcity. And of course, we've seen this all the time. We use this in our marketing too. And that's people want more of what they can't have, almost gone, almost sold out, last edition, things like that. Once people find out that there's not going to be any more, all of a sudden they want it. And that's scarcity. Then the third principle is called authority. And we've also seen this. This is something that really came up recently, is people follow the lead of credible and knowledgeable experts. And our biggest example of that is influencer marketing, right? I mean, influencer marketing is just taken off. First, it was like major influencers, like Kardashians or something. And now we have micro influencers, and they just work. People trust whatever it is that they're selling. If they're using it, they trust them as an authority. And influencer marketing is a huge way to market. And if you can get an influencer to wear your product or recommend your product you're just going to explode, right? That's a great way. Then the fourth thing is called consistency. People like to be consistent in things that they have previously done. So what they found was, especially if you could get someone to do something and them to put it in writing. So, for example, they gave an example of going to a doctor's appointment, and to have people to have a lower rate of missed doctor's appointments, they actually started having patients write down themselves their own appointments and appointment times and dates versus the secretary or the clerk write it down and then hand it to them. And they found actually like a 33% drop in sick call, people not showing up for their doctor's appointments just because they had them do it themselves. Also, things like they also gave another example of somebody who they asked them to put something in the window of their home about cleaning up the neighborhood or something like that. So they put something in their window, something very small, and they found that the people who put something in their window the week prior about cleaning up were much more likely to stick a big sign on their front lawn the next week versus people who hadn't put something in their window. So if somebody had already committed to cleaning up the neighborhood, now they're willing to put a big ugly sign on the front of their property versus somebody else who didn't do it at all. They were like, no, I'm not putting a big ugly sign. So consistency is really important. People find that they like to be consistent in life. The fifth thing is liking. And we kind of know this, right? We kind of know this even just like on a friend level. People prefer to say yes to those that they like. And we kind of know that, right? We'll say yes to our friends because we like them. So usually we will like people who are the people that, we'll do that to? People who are similar to us, similar interests. I mean, you find that, with the election coming up, if you're a Republican or a Democrat or independent, you tend to sway with, your party. And people who pass compliments, right? You automatically have a nice reaction to somebody. It's probably a dopamine reaction to somebody who compliments you. It makes you feel good, right? So you automatically like them. And then you also like people who have mutual goals to you. So if you are finding someone that, let me just move this over, make sure I'm not getting questions. The know, like, trust factor. Yes, it's very true. If you have people that have mutual goals to you, for example, I was at a networking meeting yesterday, and Jen Lou Marketing was sitting next to me, and we talked and talked and talked because we both have mutual goals. She's another marketing agency here on the North Fork, And we talked about, the difficulties that we face getting new clients on the North Fork, and, maybe some of now, the changes people are realizing they need websites and they need social media. And over the years, and she's been in business longer than me, so she's even seen greater changes than I have. But, we liked each other because we had a mutual interest. And then the sixth thing is consensus. So when people are uncertain of um, say what their decision is going to be or what they want to be, they usually look towards the actions and behaviors of others to determine their own. So the example that they used is, if you're at a hotel, and most hotels today ask you to reuse your towel, and if you want to reuse your towel, please hang it up, and they will leave it there until you decide, you're going to throw it on the floor, and then they're going to give you new ones. Well, they found that if they left a note that said, if you'd like to reuse your towel, like 75% of our guests do, then please hang your towel on the back of, on the hook or on the back of the door, or whatever it is. They found a much higher success rate when they actually put a percentage of people that or was already doing it. Like, hey, 75% of the people are doing it. Don't you want to be like them? And then they found a much higher success rate. So consensus of, I want to be like everybody else, I want to be doing what everybody else is doing, is also going to give you a marketing edge. Now, Tracy Trost actually added one to that he said that they found in their marketing, and that's called unity. And he actually gave a great example that I totally connected with too. So he gave the example of like a football team. Okay, so up here in the Northeast, we all have our football teams. We're in New York, so it's the Jets or the Giants or the Buffalo Bills. New England is all about the Patriots. The funny thing is, if you go down south, most people down south will tell you the college team that they love, right? They love Alabama. They love Florida Gators. Those are the teams that they get super excited about. And they'll talk in the we type of sentencing when they talk about their team. These people never played football a day in their life. I've never played football a day in my life. And so, but when I talk about LSU, exactly. And when I talk about, which is an amazing team, and when they talk about their college, they say, we lost last night, or we're doing really great. They're not on the team, but that's the sense of unity that you can create with something, and that people want to be part of that. That kind of also goes into the consensus and kind of like the liking. You like people that have a common interest. It goes in there too. But if you create a sense of unity, people want to be part of that, and that's also a great way to market towards them. So there's so much information here, so much information. And I know I'm probably forgetting some of it because I'm not even through with reading the book yet, but it's so great. But these are really, really wonderful ideas of how you can market to certain people and what angle you can take. He made another great point too, and I really appreciated this one. Since our brains are formed, since our visceral responses are formed when we're younger, and we react like a 7 or a 10-year-old, it's important to think about the age group that you're targeting. So if you're targeting, say, 60 to 70-year-olds, or 55, let's say 55 to 65-year-olds, that's like baby boomer age, right? What was going on when they were younger, right? Was the Vietnam War going on when they were younger? What was the economy like when they were younger? Because their response is going to be elicited from memories from when they're younger. So know your target audience and know them well. And even if you have to segment your target audience when you're going to market, meaning you're going to make several different types of ads. So Kelly, you're probably marketing to the mother, right? The mother of children. And they're most likely going to be in the age range of, late 20s to early 30s, late 20s to mid 30s, somewhere around there. I mean, you could get some older moms too, but that's probably your target area. So, what did they grow up with? What were they like when they were younger? What are they going to respond to when you show that ad? And what's going to create that visceral reaction in them when they see it? Also, Tracy made a good point of not just the words, but if you want someone to take an action and do something, show them that action. Like he works for nonprofits, so he'll work for a nonprofit that they'll be running some sort of telethon, and they'll say, "Call in now." He'll have a picture of somebody on a phone. He'll literally show you what he wants you to do. And for another example, if there's not much of something, say scarcity, you'll see somebody with that product because you're like, that's the product I want. Yes, give me that product. So, show the pictures of what you want them to do, or show the picture of the angle that you're going to take, and you'll have a much higher success rate of conversion than you would if you didn't. That's another great point, because as Tracy was getting interviewed, he kept saying, "Yes, that's great, but I would add a picture of that. I would add a picture of that." Also, one that's like, you don't want to be left out of something, or you want to be part of something. Or no, the one that was consistency. Like, you've gone to this conference before and they want you to come again. They should be showing the pictures of what went on at that conference and reminding you of how great that conference was, and reminding you and showing like the great speaker that was there, and maybe even have that speaker, make an ad for you and saying, "Hey, I can't wait to see you at this conference. Last year was great. This year is going to be greater." So bringing back those memories so people have that visceral reaction. So these are the types of examples that he used. I thought they were extremely helpful. They really make me think. I hope they make you think. If you guys have any questions that are coming up, please feel free to, write them into me at michelle@starkmediany.com. You can always DM us. And so just to remind you, that book is Influence by Robert Cialdini, and that's Cialdini, and that's Influence. And I'm reading it now, which I think is really, really great. And then Tracy Trost was the person on the podcast that was interviewed. So a couple things. We have a class coming up, and that's going to be on February. It's going to be at Michelangelo's right here in Riverhead, who has amazing food. Don't allow that. Don't know why I have this up. Michelangelo's, who has amazing food. They have downstairs, it used to be bank, so downstairs they have like this vault area. It's really, really cool. And we're going to have a 3-course meal. And there's going to be networking before and afterwards. So be sure to bring your business cards. It's going to be Wednesday, September 26th, starting at 5:30. We usually go to about 8 because we have so much information that we give you guys. Last year, we were sold out. I'm not lying about that. We actually had a waiting list of about 15 people. So we were, and we can only fit 50 in the room. And we've already sold 10 tickets, and I hardly did any marketing for it. So that's February 26th at Michelangelo's in Riverhead, 5:30 to 8. If you're an East End Women's Networking member, it's only $40. I mean, this is really cheap. Really cheap. They're sponsoring us, and they have to keep down their costs because they're a 50c3. If you're not an eWin member, then it's $45. But still, to get 2 hours of Stark Media Group information. So what are you going to learn? We're going to talk about what's really hot for 2020, like the hottest social media platforms, where you can get the biggest bang for your buck on the social media platforms, We're going to talk about stories, Instagram stories, because they're really important. And we're also going to talk about what else are we going to talk about? I got to think about this now. What's hot for 2020? The hottest social media platforms, where you can get the biggest bang for your buck. And we're going to talk about Instagram stories. And then, of course, people always have great questions. So then that will bring us into like another subject matter, or somebody say, oh yeah, this is really great. I wanted to know that too. So be sure not to miss that out. You can go onto our Facebook page, or also on our Instagram. In the bio, we have tickets there, or on a Facebook page, you can go, it's right at the top under our events, and you can buy tickets there as well. Okay, so February 26th at 5:30 at Michelangelo's in Riverhead. We hope we see you guys there. And we always give you lots of handouts. So everything we talked about, you get it in a handout. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube at Stark Media Group. And we really enjoy you guys joining in and being part of it. Yeah, Kelly, we'd love to see you there. And it is a good time, and all the women that come are awesome. Actually, well, we have men come too, but everybody's really great because we're all like-minded and we have mutual interests, and that's why this works, because we're all working to help each other to a common goal of making our businesses successful here on the East End. So, Kelly, you should also come and just check out East End Women's Networking. I think, you're going to meet a lot of the women there that night, and it'll give you a little insight into this organization, which is really great. I happen to be on the board of it as well. All right, guys, thank you so much. Let me know if you like this influencer marketing, and if you like the information I gave you, and if you want to, I looked at their website. Oh, great, Kelly. And if you want to hear more about it, because I can do a part 2 about it too. All right. Have a great Tuesday. I think I covered everything. Oh, you can always also join our private Facebook group, which is Stark Media Marketing Facebook group. You can find it on our homepage, and join that group, because we always have information, and anything I talked about or Kelsey talks about on our Coffee Talk Tuesdays, we always put everything on there too. All right. Oh, Teresa, you just joined eWin. Great. I hope we see you there on our February meeting, because it's going to be a great meeting. There'll be networking before and afterwards. So everybody always be sure to bring your cards. It's a great bunch of women. It really is. And we have a new president and a lot of new people on the board, and they are working super hard to make this an amazing organization. All right, great, guys. It's great talk to everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's a really nice group of people. And have a great Tuesday. Take care.